Hello, Caroline here. I'm on my allotment and it's the middle of May, and I'm just going to give you a quick tour to show you how I am maximising the space on my little mini allotment. A few years ago, about 3 years ago, I actually downsized from a full-size allotment, which I had for about 17 years, to a quarter plot. And the reason I did that was because I was offered a plot which was 5 minutes walk from my house. So it's so much more convenient, and the community here is really, really lovely. But in order to grow the same amount of food, or to try and grow the same amount of food as on a full-size plot, I've had to really maximize the space and use all of the techniques that I know in order to grow more food. So this is the first bed. Now my allotment I've laid out really simply. Most of the beds just go across the whole plot. They're 4 meters long and they're about 1 to 1.2 meters wide. In this bed here, there is a combination of plants. This is a cabbage from last year. So it's already produced the cabbage last year, which I then cut off at the stem. I didn't pull it out, I just cut it off at the stem. And then this year, it keeps producing all of these cabbage leaves, which I just keep pulling off and eating. That will go on doing that for a few more weeks and then it'll probably flower. Same with this broccoli. So this one I've been picking for last year, and then right into spring as well, it started producing all of these new broccoli shoots. And the flowers are also edible. So with all of the brassicas, I do leave them in to get these extra crops in early spring. And then you can see here, I've got my new brassicas planted in here. So I've actually added quite a lot of compost, and I found that you don't need to rotate every single time if you add a really good compost. So these are broccoli, and I think there's some cauliflower here and some cabbages down here. So I've put those in, but I've left this one in because this is still giving me crops. And then I've put in these little, see, look, there's a bit of bindweed there. I've put in these little clumps of leeks, little baby leeks. Now these won't be ready, these are really slow to grow, so these will be ready at the end of the year, autumn, and they'll stand over winter, they're winter ones. So I've combined those with the brassicas because on my allotment there's allium leaf miner, which it does require that you use a net, and both of these crops need a net. So, and then in between, because these brassicas are really slow to grow, I'm utilising the space in between. I've planted some seeds, and you can see that some of them have come up already. I could have planted these seeds earlier, but I just didn't get around to it. So this is like covering the ground in between. It's things like, I just took a load of my old seed packets and put them out onto the bed. So things like lettuce, rocket, herbs and edible flowers. So anything that's not going to compete with the plants, so it's really non-vigorous growing ground covers. And then here I'll show you some more of this later, but this is just a weed that's on my allotment, but it's called fat hen, and it tastes just like spinach. It's got a really tender leaf. It's also called lamb's quarters, and this one is really worth leaving. It does grow really massive if you leave it, and it can overtake other plants. So I will make sure I either harvest this, and if it gets too big I'll take it out, but it's quite shallow rooted. So for now, I've been picking the tops off these and using them. So that's quite handy because I didn't actually grow any spinach this year. So similarly on this bed here, I have a lot of alliums, garlic and onions. These garlic were planted in last autumn, so they're getting really big now. They're the storage type of garlic, and these are my onions here, planted in bunches of about 5. Now, I grew these from seed. And the garlic, I planted them at quite a big spacing in between the rows. The reason being, I've actually now planted in between these little cabbages here. So these are really small. There's another one there, look, it's a little bit bigger. So these will grow big, so I'm getting them started while the garlic is still in the ground, basically. So I'm overlapping the crops here, which means that I'm going to get more in, there's less of a gap. And another thing that I've got in this bed here is parsnips. Now the parsnips have just self-seeded, so every year I leave a few of them to flower, like this one here is going to flower, and they produce these beautiful flowers, and then they self-seed, and a lot of them I'll just keep. If they're in the wrong place, I'll just take them out, and I don't have to sow any parsnip seeds. So this flowery bed behind me, these are all brassicas that I sowed at the end of the summer. It seems like kohlrabi, and I've left some of them to go to seed, and they've got these beautiful flowers on them, which are great, buzzing full of bees. So I try and leave some of the crop to go to seed if I can, because for beauty and also for wildlife. So it really is an easy way of having flowers. So earlier on I planted out some of my beans, and then behind here I've got some sweet corn and a couple of summer squash in between them. So this is my version of the Three Sisters combination of plants, but I've only used two. The sweet corn here, it's too slow to grow to be a stake for the beans, which is what the combination is originally. So I put my beans at the back here. The sun is here on my plot, so I've got all of these tall staked things that grow tall at the back of the plot, and I grow these in the same place every year. Again, some I do move some things around on this plot, but some things I do keep in the same place. So these, I have just put this up today. It's just really simple, very low tech bits of bamboo which will last a few years, and bits of string tied around them. So that's for the peas. These are some peas I've actually put straight in the ground, and then these ones, so these are soup peas for storing, and then I have my Monge 2 and peas for eating fresh here. Now these are tall peas, they grow to 6-7 foot high, and that's why I've made such a big frame for them. Got some broad beans here, and potatoes. So this is an example of some of the fat hen grown a bit bigger. Now I've left this, so I won't leave it forever because I don't want it to compete with the potatoes. There's a potato there. But for the moment, it's a really good crop and it's coexisting. So I'm just going to leave it for now. And there's some more parsnips that are self-seeded here. And what I've been doing, because we've had no rain, I've been drying out the weeds that I've taken out. I've been drying them out on top of the soil and just leaving them as a mulch. And I wouldn't do this if it was last summer and really rainy, because the slugs would live underneath them. But for now, the most important thing is that everything stays hydrated. Here I've got some celery at the end, and then a few bits of flowers. I love these poppies, so I just leave a few. And then these are potatoes. These are my early potatoes, so they're a bit bigger. And again, I've just put all of this, some of this is fresh manure, which with straw, which I've just dumped on top, and it seems to be working. So I use a bit of manure on this plot because we're surrounded by stables, so we can just go and get it for free using what is available locally. This is a very damp area, so interestingly that these irises are growing here. And sometimes if it's wet, it does flood in this corner, so that's why I've left the iris. And I've also made a raised bed in this corner. This is a hotbed. So this is my hotbed. This is the second year that I've done it, and I really love this technique. But I'm using the materials that we've got around us because we've got a couple of stables and we can just go in and just take the manure. You can also make a hotbed with other materials, but the idea is that you gather all of the materials in one go in the winter. So it's something you can do in February when there's not much else to do. And you put them all in a pile. I've just used pallets. And then when you put that much materials in a pile in one go, it makes a lot of heat, and then you use that heat by making a little mini raised bed on top of it. So this is actual compost on top of here, and then I have a little plastic cover that goes over it at the start of the year, and I've taken it off now, and this really gives everything a head start. So I've used it to grow carrots because they're away from the carrot fly, and also I had problems germinating them successfully in the rest of the plot. They germinate so well in here. So this is an example of another way that you can grow more food in a small space. What I do is I sow these really close together. Mostly also my kids did sow these, so that's why they are super close. But what I will do is I'll take them out, take out the thinnings, and we can actually eat the thinnings. So some of them are like, you know, tiny little carrots like that. That's a purple one. So look, it's a little mini carrot there. But you can also eat the tops of the carrots. And then I just carry on doing, I just give them just enough room to grow a bit bigger. And then I just keep pulling out the thinnings, and the thinnings get bigger and bigger throughout the season. And I just take out the smallest ones, and then in a few weeks' time, we will have big carrots to pull out of here. So behind the carrots, I've got 3 types of carrots here, 3 colours, and then beetroot, and the leaves look so fresh and lovely. You can eat these leaves. And so I might pick a few as baby plants again to give them a bit more room, to give the other ones a bit more room to grow out. And I'll just pick it like that, and then I've got a nice leaf crop there, you see. And behind here, the same with kohlrabi. And then along the back here, I have my pumpkins. So these are squash, winter squash, called Burgess buttercup and uchiki curry. And they will grow over this archway here. And then I have some more on the other side and some achocha. So the great thing about this is the winter squash will actually, so I've put in some composted compost here, but their roots will access all of this manure that's below them as well. They don't mind growing with a bit of compost for their roots, and then they don't mind growing with manure around them that's fresh. So they will access all of that fresh manure and grow really big over that archway, which is utilising that space, saving me loads of space. So I don't have loads of perennials on this plot because I do have quite a lot of fruit at home, but I have some comfrey here, which is for fertility and also for bees because they love it. And then behind there is an apple tree. It's a loganberry. And then the other things that I inherited were this red currant, which I have made it a bit thinner to take up less space. And then I also have this rhubarb, 2 rhubarb plants, which are absolutely massive. We just eat a lot of rhubarb. I just love all these beautiful flowers. So this one is actually chamomile. And this was on the plot when I came. It just self-seeds every year, and I keep picking the flowers off. I leave a few for the insects as well, and taking them home and drying them and just making some beautiful tea, and I dry it and drink it all winter as well. This little area is my daughter's area. You can see she hasn't done much weeding, but she's got some strawberries in here and some sunflowers and some fennel and a few other flowers as well. And a couple of weeks ago we all dug a pond, which was really fun. So it's really, really mini, and it needs some plants in there to oxygenate it, but it's really nice to have a little pond. Please subscribe to my channel and stay tuned, because I'm going to be sharing lots more about my garden and my food forest and some of the projects that I run as well throughout the season, and it will be lovely to see you here.